Welcome to Find Your Freedom. Today we have a really special guest. Our guest today brings in a lot of hospitality experience and brings a very different perspective. And it's really like when you start hearing this person's story, you'll learn about kind of their journey and how they've transitioned and pivoted and apply their entrepreneur mindset. Again, a thought leader in the space and somebody who's like built a podcast, I guess, a network. And I mean, for me, like that's like mind blowing for me just to even think about like doing that down the line. But love to kind of pick his brain and learn. But like Wil Slickers, this is probably not the best intro, but welcome to the show.
Woo, woo, woo.
We made it. Well, no, thank you guys both for having me on. The intro, you're great, man. I understand. I always have the hardest time with intros too, especially with people's names. I'm like, shoot, how do I say that? How do I say the last name or whatever? So I totally appreciate it. But thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Oh man, that's funny. That's funny. But listen, man, Wil, once again, we appreciate you being on the show. And, I'm looking you up. Like, you're from Denver?
I'm in Denver now. I'm originally from the PNW, just a little bit north of Seattle. So I moved here a year ago just to kind of try something new,
I got you. So, man, look, you're, one of the top 20 influencers in the market, right? You got that award. You got the Global Hospitality Award winner, right? Tell us a little bit about your story, man. Kind of go back a little bit and catch us up for the listeners.
Yeah, I will try to keep it at that 2-minute mark intro. The way I always like to start it off, though, is like, hey, I was this kid that was very lost throughout middle school and high school. I come from a big family, didn't know where I belonged, couldn't decide what I wanted to do for a career, and then had my first entrepreneurship experience as starting a chauffeur company. Failed miserably. I was 19 years old, just got out of basic training from the Army and stuff, and was just like, went into massive debt, got a car repoed, super depressed, and stumbled into hospitality because I had all these nice chauffeur suits in my closet, and I was like, I can't let those go to waste. So I remember picking up some clients at this 4-diamond resort just down the road from where I lived, and I was like, I'm going to go apply there. Figured I could wear my suits. It would be probably a good professional experience, and I got hired on the spot and quickly fell in love with hotels and just guest experience and taking care of people. I didn't realize I could actually get paid for being like a person that just talks to people and takes care of them, and was like, all right, this is it. And slowly but surely grew my career. And after a while of doing hotel management, I got exposed to short-term rentals through my parents. I was starting a podcast out of boredom so I could learn. And long story short, one thing led to another, and was able to quit my day job as a hotel manager to run my podcast full time and start a small little portfolio for my vacation rental management company. So that's hopefully under 2 minutes and kind of in that range to pick and pull from.
Oh yeah. So I think for me, what's really inspiring is I think a lot of people kind of go through this journey where they're not sure exactly what they want to do. Everybody has kind of like their own type of skill set. You kind of came into hospitality and, for you specifically, like you're a personable person. So you're able to kind of build relationships and then leverage that specific skill and pivot it into multiple parts of like hospitality in general, from running a business to a podcast network and how you build relationships. So maybe speak on that as far as coming into your own, as far as how you were able to kind of discover that and then start applying it to the things that you've been doing now.
Yeah. The first time I kind of really discovered it really was I was a hotel manager out in the Oregon coast, and I had my podcast going. I wasn't consistent, didn't really know the theme. I just knew hey, I could play something off of my last name, call Slick Talk, and I'll just talk to people in the industry. But I didn't want there's a couple other Slick Talks out there. So it was all right, add the hospitality podcast just to make sure people knew this was a hospitality show. And honestly, out of just curiosity of wanting to learn and grow my experience in the industry is what drove the show. And it still is kind of part of that core, but I started to see a lot of traction from experts, like people that have been in the industry 25, 30 years, either commenting on LinkedIn or tagging me in posts and like sharing their thoughts on episodes, and was like, holy crap, I did not know that people like really cared about these conversations. It was more for me than it was for anybody else. And then that's when I realized I actually had a voice, which is like as cheesy as you can be when it comes to like podcasts. Like, I have a voice, and so I have a podcast. But it really did like kind of have that ripple effect. And that's when I realized like, okay, this is where I can just learn a ton, but also connect with amazing people. And, you know, getting after COVID, finally to meet a lot of them in person and just have those like really solid foundation relationships. I guess that is a hard way of explaining. Like, I just realized that people actually liked what I had to say, and the fact that I actually wasn't talking as much, morally was just asking the right question and being a good listener. I think when you are on the other side of the mic, like you guys are, you know, you guys are like focused on listening, grabbing a small detail out of a sentence that I say or whatever, and taking that into a conversation. It's kind of an art. So that's one thing I did realize was like, okay, if I can be a really good listener and kind of cultivate this conversation in a unstructured but like very intentional way, I think that's when things kind of really took off.
Hey, listen, absolutely amazing. And when you talk about, listening, that is so important, because conversation is just that. Conversation is a two-way street. A lot of people think it's talk, but you also have to be an excellent listener too. But a few things that you mentioned, just talking about, your podcast, and, you saying, hey, I kind of started this for me, right? To kind of start poking away. And by you doing that, you grab the ears of some experts out there who's commenting on your post, and you like, holy shit. Like,
yeah, I was mind blown.
Mind blowing. But, so I guess tell us a little more, because I know you got the vacation rental school podcast going on, right? And when I think about school, I kind of get excited because, we love to educate ourselves and then go out and apply it. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So when that started happening, after my first failed experience of an entrepreneurship, doing that show for a company, I went through a lot of mental struggle. It was like, okay, I, again, started the podcast for me. It wasn't to quit my job and do it full time and become a content creator or launch a podcast network it was honestly just like, I had that entrepreneur itch and just wanted to literally just have a conversation and create something that I liked and enjoyed. So it was really a hobby, unexpectedly realizing that it quickly turned into quote unquote my day job. And so with the Vacation Rental Micro School podcast, this is years later now. So I started my original show, Slick Talk, in 2018. And now we have over 30 shows under our podcast network called hospitality.fm. I am not the host of 30 of them, so thank God. But a lot of these shows are with other like-minded experts in different categories of hospitality, from vacation rentals to food and beverage to coffee shops to short hotels. So all experts doing their own thing, but we're just giving them the back-end support with helping monetize, grow their audience, quality of their content, audio, all that stuff. One thing we realized with that is that there isn't really, I wouldn't say gaps in these shows, but there's listeners out there that are looking for more bite-sized content, something they can easily consume while they're brushing their teeth or while they're making a protein shake or just getting ready to go to the gym, and their gym commute could be 10 minutes long. So our goal was like, okay, let's create a daily show that will be seasonal. So it's only going to be 20 episodes for season 1, and Monday through Friday we got 20 episodes going out. That's a whole month, and it's going to be all bite-sized actionable content. So my kind of thinking was, season 1, the theme, 101 of vacation rentals. What are the need to know basics? Like, nothing high level. It might be high level for someone who's brand new, but for us, it should be very much standard and basic. And just really walking through, like with experts. This week is Natalie Palmer with the No Vacancy podcast. Next week we have Justin Ford with Breezeway on safety and what does safety look like in vacation rentals, and it's not talked about as often. To then operations, and then of course tech. So very basic stuff, but very like core foundation. And that's kind of what we wanted to do with it. Just make it really easy, make it daily, and let it be a good intro for people to get into the industry.
So I listened to the podcast this morning, so I know it released, and just like you said, it was 10 minutes. And so for me, it was like the perfect timing, because every morning I go downstairs, right after I leave the gym, I have the protein shake that I make, but then I also have to clean the blender. Yeah. And that's like a perfect like 10, 15 minutes, because during that time, I'm also possibly posting like a reel, or just checking my social media during that time. So I'm trying to multitask, doing all those things. I listen to the podcast, and for me, like, you guys talked about, like, I think Natalie talks about the 4 quadrants. And for me, it was like a cool little takeaway that I had, like, just like you said, like a little daily bite. And, it got me thinking, oh, maybe I should listen to it tomorrow while I'm doing the same exact little routine. So, I think that's a great way to, as far as like how you guys are able to identify like that particular item. I guess my question too on that is, like, now, like, you do partnerships. So like I saw, like, sponsored by Breezeway. How do you facilitate those sort of things? Like, let's say somebody is interested in doing that, like, long term, or, creating whatever it is. But just kind of lining that up.
Yeah. So the nice thing about sponsorships is that it's a great way to cover your costs and your time, and also just kind of saying like, hey, I have an audience that I've taken a lot of time to build. If you want to be in front of them, it is kind of a pay to play thing. But my relationships with my sponsors have started back in, again, 2018, 2019, when I first launched my first show and kind of went full time. And with that, again, it really comes, it's not an overnight thing. There's some deals, yes, you can be like, hey, I like this company, or this company reaches out to you and you guys work on something, and boom, you're now monetized. But for me, it's very much a relationship builder. You got to take the time, know the product, know the team. And my easiest like go-to with anyone in our network has been, what does your tech stack look like? If you have a vacation rental management company, who do you use? If you have a hotel, what tech stack do you use? What products do you like? As a listener of other shows, have you heard other sponsors that maybe would be cool? Is Capital One your venture, like your credit card? Great. Reach out to Capital One and see if they're maybe interested in a partnership. Like, just stuff like that. Just go with the easy stuff that you already know and like. Then work your way up into going into products maybe you've never heard of, or companies that maybe just you don't think are the right fit, but maybe they could have a cool solution that might be perfect for a series of episodes that you're doing. Kind of get creative with that, but start with what you know and like, and then see what can build from there.
That's some great advice, and we appreciate it, right? That's some great, but one of the things that a lot of people, don't see, is how many doors shut on you before someone said yes, because that's important, because, I know I'm guilty of it. I would sit there and say, oh, you just go out and you do this and bada boom, bada bang, everything works out. But, sometimes I don't go into, oh, you know what? I called this bank. I called that bank. I spoke to this person. I spoke to that person. And it took me really 2 weeks to get this thing that I'm mentioning to you. So talking about the sponsorships, how many, doors, I guess, or people said no, and what was like the mindset behind it to not be defeated, right? To continue to move forward.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because at the end of the day, I've been telling all of our, we have our main goal with our podcasters in our network right now is grow their audience and grow monetization. And sometimes it could be monetization to help grow audience or vice versa, but it's not always instant. And we had some shows, they join, boom, we got them sponsored right away. We had other shows, it's like, hey, it's going to take some time to build this because maybe the numbers aren't where they need to be, or the content quality. Stuff like that. But then also sales cycles are taking a very long time. We are in a weird economic time. So a lot of people cut marketing first. And that's one thing I had to understand early. It was like right when COVID hit, I had, I think in 1 month, I had over $25,000 or $30,000 worth of sponsorships lined up. Wow. And within a day, I lost everything. And it was like, well, I now have to dip into savings. So that sucks. And, that was a big wake up call. I was like, okay, marketing is one of the first things to go. So for like my, business, it's like, okay, we need to understand that we need to bring value. So that way, when those cuts do come up, they kind of look at us as a channel that is valuable enough to keep that spend going. So to answer your other question though, how many no's did I get? How many doors shut on me? A lot of the time I don't even get a response. So that's the one thing. If it's like, you don't even get a no, you get a opened email that never gets responded to. But what I did in the beginning, honestly, once I got one sponsorship, I did a series. I did a 10 episode series, and I tried to get sponsors to cover one or multiple episodes. That was one task in alone, but that showed proof of concept and kind of a marketplace fit. But for continued monetization, not have to come up with a 10 episode series every 10 weeks or whatever, you had to get just one. You just get one show sponsor that you can then use as not leverage, but as a proof of concept. So I can, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hostfully, but shout out to them because they've been my one sponsor for the last 2 years. I've never stopped. Like they've been consistent, and they just love what we're building, and they've been such a big supporter. And so with that, I can say, okay, X, Y, and Z company, Hostfully has been with me for 6 months now, and they want to continue. So that shows that they are finding a good fit with my audience or with my content. Would you be interested in also matching them at this price or matching them at this package that I built? Because it's very custom and it's very personalized, and we're going to deep dive into your product. Just getting one person or one company on board is enough to then be like, hey, this business and this company as much as I do, if not better, because you guys integrate and you're all tech partners and stuff. So they took a chance on me. They want to continue to take a chance on me. I'm hoping you're willing to do the same, and kind of just lining it up that way and just being 100% honest. Like I even remember telling my first round of sponsors, like, I don't know exactly how to work all this stuff, but we're figuring it out. And I think you'd be a great fit because I talk about you nonstop anyway. So like, why not just pay me to do it? And, sometimes it works, you got to take a risk.
I think I love that. Like I look at kind of your journey and how you even began with how you reach out to like the local, whatever, coffee shop or where you build a relationship. So I feel like you've had a track record of building relationships, and it just kind of like now it's like different tiers. And so like walk me through you started with like in the hospitality, creating the experience of whatever, a local vendor that you can create a package or some sort of discount. And then you kind of gone on with like vendors. Now like walk me through like your like LinkedIn, like stalking. And I know I've heard it on one of your podcasts. You mentioned like you do LinkedIn stalking, and I know like, part of your model is you even reach out to like, like decision maker, CEO, or, how do you get in front of them? Because I'm sure there's like this big barrier to even, getting through the door. So like maybe, walk me through your process, or what does that even, what like some highs and lows with that?
Yeah. Well, especially now LinkedIn is it used to be very good without the spam and stuff, but now there's a lot of spammy or messages and connections. So it's it's gotten harder. Let's just say my outreach has not gotten easier, but from like the property manager side, again, it comes down to if you have a home, let's say it's a 4-bedroom, 5-bath, or 4-bedroom, 3-bath, whatever. And there's a bunch of great activities or local businesses around you. Just start with that. Like literally the best, like hotels. And I've said this on other shows before. Hotels fail sometimes, and majority of the time, because they forget to focus on the 5 blocks around them, rather than they're just trying to get all the international travel and all this stuff. But no, if you just focus on the 5 blocks around you, you can actually find a ton of great value that your guests are going to love, because 1, it's close, and then 2, it's actually good. It's not going to be Walmart or generic brands that they can find anywhere else. So just know that it's good and it's right there. So just use that. For the podcast side, like the big thing was, I don't know if you guys seen this, but like I know a lot of like Airbnb hosts or people that get started in the short-term rental industry, they start on Instagram. Usually it's like Instagram's like their number one spot, but everyone forgets about LinkedIn, B2B. So yeah, maybe Instagram is great for B2C or, creating really beautiful content about your home and your destination. But there's an untapped market in LinkedIn. I still believe that today. I said that in 2000. I think I discovered LinkedIn to be my main platform in 2019. But it's so untapped, and it's such a great industry of experts that are just putting out great content for free, willing to connect virtually or in person if you know that they're local. And don't be afraid to stalk their profile, man. It's a compliment. It's great to get to know them. Like, I love that you guys did your homework. Like, you guys went through and saw the pinned articles and like stuff like that. So it just makes it more personal. In a couple of weeks, and we're in that hospitable host book together, and I'm going to be talking about how to be a good podcast guest. And a lot of it is to not be generic. Don't copy and paste the same message to me and send it to every other podcaster out there. I'm not going to open it. Or if I open it, I'm not going to respond because it's the same thing I've seen 1,000 times. If you can make it a little bit personal, it might catch my attention and show that you've actually listened to the show or heard somebody on the show, which then is, again, a compliment because now you're like, oh, people, you're getting to see the name behind the number, so to speak. And it just makes it more, I don't know, it's less self, me. And it's more of like, hey, I like your stuff. Here's why I like your stuff, because it relates to my stuff. We should talk about this kind of mutual understanding or mutual bond or mutual knowledge or mutual passion, whatever it might be. I think the more we can find common ground through LinkedIn stalking or Instagram stalking or even just understanding what's out there, then you're more likely going to have a better response than no response.
No, I love that. I think for me, it just, you see varying degrees of like quality for like podcasts. And I think part of it is like chemistry and understanding, like if you do your homework, you are going to have you'll be in a better position to ask better questions. And so like for me, like listening to some of your podcasts, like, going on, I was like, I'm just going to use his own like advice. I'm going to go on his LinkedIn. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what he posted. Yeah. If that's his jam, let's see what's going on. And then it got me thinking like, okay, maybe this is actually a tool that I've talked about and never really like leverage as much. And I heard you say like, if you were to make it in tiers, like it's like LinkedIn, then it's IG, then Facebook, if you get to it. But, and that, that's interesting because I think a lot of people kind of default to like, oh, all right, I'm going to try the TikTok or the IG. And I think depending on like who your target niche is, but I think as like a host and as a guest, you can be a better host by knowing the guest much, much better. And I think just like learning from you, it just, I wanted to learn from you because you've seen like both sides. And so it's, asking the right question. So again, it's like super like pumped about it. I don't know, Lenny, if you had like, any like, particular like follow up on that one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, look, I'm over here, like I told you, we was talking behind the scenes, right? I said, Will, just let you know, I got a pen and the pad over here. So I'm going to be sitting there taking notes, right? So, and I don't want to just breeze over this, because how simplistic it sounds, a lot of people really probably still don't get it. When you mentioned the 5 block radius, like focus on the 5 block radius. Now, you're saying a lot of hotels, is not following this model. And one of the reasons why, they're not succeeding. And you can just take that, mindset. And if you can, I want you to talk a little bit about this a little more because, that's a part of being, in the hospitality space is ensuring that your guest is as comfortable and pleasing as possible and throw in a few things that they totally was not expecting, which is some of the things that, from your 5 block radius perspective, shows. So if you could, man, just go in just a little bit on that, because I think that that's just so cool. I'm telling you, I'm taking notes. I'm excited over here. So listeners, I hope that you are as excited as I am.
You're getting me pumped up.
We always say we don't have guests on here, right? We have friends. So Will is a friend to us. And I'm sitting here like, boom, 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 taking my notes. I'm trying to stay as still as possible for the camera. But Will, if you could, just go into that 5 block radius a little bit.
Yeah, a great example would be my first hotel that I worked at, and I won't name them. They're a great hotel, but just for this sake, I won't name them. They're a 4-diamond resort, part of Marriott, so independently owned though, so they don't have all the restrictions that other franchise courtyards, residences would have. And so, guess what? Everyone loves coffee. Everyone needs coffee, especially after a long night of drinking, or maybe it's just a crazy business trip. They had a Starbucks coffee that wasn't even a real Starbucks. Like coffee. They had a Starbucks that wasn't even real. So it's like you couldn't use your gift cards, you couldn't use your rewards, couldn't get your free drink on your birthday, like none of that. But it was a Starbucks brand. So you had that Starbucks quality coffee, I guess. How disappointing is that for the guest to one that does love Starbucks and they can't use any of their stuff? Complete bummer. But then there's great local coffee shops and coffee roasters literally within that 5 block. You could have put in a great local business that has higher quality than Starbucks and has a personalized story to the destination rather than Starbucks. Everyone knows Starbucks. They think Seattle. We weren't in Seattle. So it's like you could easily just put a local coffee roaster in there or a coffee shop and had a great success with that because they'll have their own program. They'll have their own blends. They'll have whatever. Another example would be when I was a hotel manager or even a restaurant manager at the same hotel kind of group. They owned a brewery about a couple blocks away. And I just lost you guys on camera, by the way. Just want to let you know. I don't know if you...
Oh, all good. Just do your thing. Just keep talking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had a brewery just a couple blocks away from the restaurant, and they used all the brewery, their beers on tap, their beers in bottles. They did all sorts of experiments and cool giveaways and drink packages, which is where I got the idea for our management company. Was like, hey, let's create drink packages for people. But the cool thing is they had a story to tell. It wasn't a normal big name brewery that everyone knows on the Oregon coast or anything. It was independent to that town. And the whole point of the name of it, and I'll love to give them a shout out, is their name was Public Coast Brewery. The reason why it's called Public Coast is because the whole Oregon coast, 362 miles of it, is open to the public. Not one piece of land is individually owned by an owner. So, there's beach houses and, beachfront properties, but they don't own that section of beach. It's all public beach. And I still remember the story because of how passionate the owner kind of put that in my place. But this was a story that I was able to communicate to my travelers, my restaurant guests, my hotel guests. I could say, hey, yes, you can go to this liquor store and get your generic Blue Moon or Bud Light or whatever. But did you know Public Coast Brewery is right down the road and we have it here. We can package it up for you. And they're like, oh, that's great. Why do you like this? It was like, well, it's part of our company, but there's also a little history. Like you can go anywhere on the Public Coast and have a little fire, roast some marshmallows, have some hot dogs, drink some beer, go surfing, do whatever. And it's all public. And then I have a story to tell them. And it just created something way more connecting than I love Blue Moon and that liquor store right there is right down, they're open until midnight. Like the interaction is just so much different, right? So it's, that store's open until midnight, or yes, we have this here right now, or you can go get a really cool experience 2 blocks away. Plus, did you know that Oregon has this, and that? Like it was just more of a draw and a connector. Again, relationship builder between you and the guest. So for me, if you can find more of those, it's going to make you stand out better. Cause I not to brag, but I had my name mentioned in all the reviews and anything positive. It was like, oh, Will took great care of us. Not only did he, know the menu or whatever, but he also told us a lot of stuff that we didn't know about Cannon Beach. And it was just like, yes, if you could do more of that, that's going to look so much better on the company, on you, vice versa. So hopefully that kind of goes into your 5 block radius. Yeah.
Killed it.
No,
Nice.
I love that. I think as everybody talks about like creating the experience, and I think that's like a little bit cliche, but I think you kind of demonstrate like what does that even look like? So it's like the local experience, because I think a lot of people, whether let's say they're traveling from somewhere else, but it's it's always appealing to have that local experience and having a guide, because again, you're saving people's time. Like when I recently went to Arrowhead. It was my first time ever going to Lake Arrowhead. And my host was actually like super informative. You know, there's a lot of automated messaging. Like I could tell that it's automated, but the way they timed it was actually really effective. And the way they were able to kind of personalize each like particular place that I can go locally, I think was very well done, where I was like, I didn't have to do the homework. I was just like, you know what, that looks good, I'm going to do that. And it saves time for me. And then I get the good experience. And just like you said, it was like personalized, where it's just like, it's not just like go here, it's go here because of this. And this is a story. So I think the big takeaway really is it's like the story is so powerful. And I think it makes, it creates the experience for you know, whoever the guest is, or the person, or the local person. So maybe like, you know, you being in the hospitality business, like, and having that background, like walk us through like people having bad experiences. So like maybe on the opposite end, and like whether it's like general operators, like what can they do better to kind of overcome that? Because I think maybe there was a lot of people that came into the space without the hospitality background, and they're struggling a little bit with like, okay, create the experience. They hear influencers say that, but maybe like walk them through what they can do better, or things that maybe people have, you know, kind of fallen short on.
Yeah. And it comes back to like the classic hospitality training from like, this is instilled into Marriott and to Ritz-Carlton and to all these other companies. It's to anticipate the guest needs, right? So if you can anticipate the needs of your guests, you're more likely to lower that barrier, or not lower that barrier, but lower that chance of having a conflict or a bad review. And then one thing, when you do get one, because we all do, is that don't be so prideful that you have to be like, well, no, there's no way, and no refunds, because like, F you stayed at my property. And it's like, no, it's like, I think you got to understand, like, be a human being too. Like you're an entrepreneur. It's great to have that mindset. It's great to be very business focused, and obviously not every situation is going to qualify for a refund or this and that. There's a lot of little stuff you can do that just make it go smoother for that 5-star review that was a 4 turn into a 5 potentially, or even that was a 1 and go up to a 4, right? Like if you can catch it beforehand and understand like things weren't perfect, and just admit it, put your pride and ego to the side and say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you're so right. Check-in was at 4. We didn't get you in until 4:45. Look, we had some housekeeping delays. We're struggling to find more and more housekeepers that have flexible schedules or whatever the scenario might be. Here is a $100 gift card, or here is, you know, I'll give you the first night half off, or you can do little stuff that doesn't have to actually go into like monetary side, like giving away money. You could do, you know, go out to, here's our favorite restaurant. Me and my wife love this, or me and my girlfriend, or me and my partner, whoever, we love this place. Go there, send us a picture of your receipt, and we'll refund that total amount on you. Like, go have a good night, and tell them that we sent you. And if so-and-so's working, you know, tell them it's a special occasion, and they'll make sure you're all taken care of. Like, just adding something like that. That's a great way to just look, own the mistake, but make it right.
And that's it. You hit it right there. Own the mistake, right? Because listen, people are coming out for an experience, and that's what they want. And some things go wrong. You know, hey, we just, you know, had a guest, or I should say 14 people, right, who was spending Christmas, you know, over at one of our cabins, and the pipes froze up, you know, and I mean, look, they're there. They got kids, you know, they're there for Christmas. They want the experience. We told them, hey, find a hotel room. We'll reimburse you for the days that you're there. Because they wanted to stay, but they just wanted to make sure they can, you know, wash up and stuff like that. And that's what we did. At the end of that stay, they wound up, just like you said, oh man, we know we had some issues, which was out of your control. You know, the temperature dropped down into teens, which hasn't happened in the last 5 years there. So, and they gave us a fantastic review. So it really is about, you know, that experience and just understanding what you can do to sit there and allow the guests to have that great experience. But hey, Will, listen, man, we can sit here and actually talk to you, you know, forever. But, you know, one of the things that, you know, we love to ask our friends here at Find Your Freedom is just that. What does find your freedom mean to you?
Such a tough question. I could go on forever. I could be really vague. There's two ways. So I'll try to give right in the middle. I'll just say I had the hardest time finding my freedom. Having that previous failure definitely left a mark on me, to then when I launched and kind of quit my day job to go full-time into podcasting and to start a podcast network and a management company and this and that. There was a lot of doubts in my head, a lot of questionable mindset things where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm the right person. What if it fails? What if I fail in front of everybody? All that stuff. And I would say the biggest freedom setting thing that I've done, or maybe even just experienced, was living life off of my own expectations rather than anybody else's. So a little bit of backstory to it is like my parents, I lived my life completely for their expectation of how they wanted my life to live. I love them today, still, family and all that stuff, but I was going to become a pastor. So imagine that whole route of trying to go through this and not intentionally knowing at the top of my head that I'm doing this to please my parents. But from a very young age, that's what I was told I was meant to be. So what do you think happens when you're growing up? You're like, I'm meant to go do this, so I got to go do it. But really, I wasn't. I was meant to be with people for sure. But, I had to then understand that when I quit my day job as a hotel manager, which my mom was like, what are you doing? Why? What? Don't you make a good salary? And, we get good stays and discounts there and all this other stuff. So it's like, yeah, but I'm going to do this for me. And again, it's kind of like what back to the beginning of the podcast, it was like, I did it for me and I have fun with it. So for people listening, I think just finding your freedom is finding out like what expectations you want to give yourself rather than others give you.
I love that. I mean, that's like an amazing answer. And I think that really resonates with like the listeners, with me, as far as like, figuring out what works for you. And, I think that's really important. And so, I guess, transitioning into like, where can we find you? And like, what, I know we can find, I Googled you and you're like, it's everywhere. So like, what is like the best way to find you or like, I guess like if somebody wants to kind of connect?
Yeah. Again, very active on LinkedIn. So Wil with 1L, Slickers is where you can find me, or you can just go to hospitality.fm. It's where all of my shows are published. It's where I'm most active. I'm getting more active on Instagram stories. So you can do @SlickTalkPod if you want to do that as well. But yeah, I'm a very active LinkedIn guy. So I'll admit that I'm on more of the old school generation of social media for a lot of people, but hey, I like that. I like the content over there. It's got a good company too. So
that's great. That's great. That's great. So listen here, with our friends here at Find Your Freedom, right? We do something special. And if you're a friend of ours, then you do it with us, right? We do this boom at the end, all right? And we make a uniform. Our goal is to sit here and shatter someone's speakers when they're working out or they're driving their car, or they're listening in their office when they're supposed to be doing some work, But that's our goal here. So on the count of 3, all right, I need a boom from you. Wil, all right. Give me the head nod. Let me know you're ready.
Oh, we're ready. Let's do it.
My man. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Boom!
Awesome. Once again, we tell you all the time, we have friends here. We do not have guests. All right. And Wil is just that. I'm telling you, in the short-term rental field, hospitality is where it's at. And Wil, brag, my brother, because you do got all the answers. Okay. And I asked the audience to go check Wil out, because if you're looking to get into this business, he got all the answers for you. Now, for us, we need you, man. We want to sit here and bring more Wils to the table. And to do that, we need for you to subscribe. We need for you to post some comments below, because brother Omid and myself, we will get in there and make sure that we respond. And on top of that, we also need some love. We need you to share this with some of your friends, your cousin, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your spouse, your aunt, your uncle, your grandmother, your granddaughter, whoever is interested in finding their freedom. Okay. With that being said, we love all of you. Until the next time. Peace.
Peace.